we think God came to give us this mediocrity, this averageness, this mundaneness. Like when I become a believer, it's drudgery, there's hard work, it's just taxing. But the reality of what Jesus wants us to understand is he came to give abundance.
Hello and welcome to the Overflow Podcast. This is a brand new podcast on a mission to discover how you and I can live a life of abundance, full to overflowing. In this first season, we'll be unpacking biblical principles on gifts like love, grace, and forgiveness, and how we can better receive them and pass them on to others. This is episode 1. My name is Karl Lindsay, and I'm joined by my friend Filip Milosavljevic. Welcome, Filip. Are you ready for this?
Hey, Karl, I am absolutely ready. I'm very excited for this journey with you, Karl. Now, we're here at the very beginning. People don't know who you or I are, so what are two things that you think the listeners should know about you?
Oh, let's keep it simple for now. Number one, I'm Australian. You can tell a little bit by my accent. And number two, I'd say I love to travel. I have a special place in my heart for Africa, and been there a number of times, and I just can't get enough of the continent. So many different countries there, different cultures, but it just many times just feels like I'm going home when I visit.
Oh, wow.
It's a beautiful place. What about you?
For me, I would say I am a husband, I am a father of one and one in the way. So I absolutely love figuring out the dynamics of relationships in our home, parenting, how to just really have the best relationships possible. And that kind of transpires also because I'm a pastor and working with other people, how to really help them grow into the best version of themselves. So that's one thing. The other thing is I just broke my arm, fractured the wrist.
How did you do that?
I was jumping off of a huge skyscraper and...
I heard a different story.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you the truth. So I was biking and I literally just flipped over the handlebars by accident because I got scared and overcorrected. And
oh no! Yeah, so you're into the outdoors and sports and things.
Yes, I love the outdoors: basketball, soccer, and biking, swimming. I just love being outside.
Love it.
So now, Karl, hey, let's jump into the overflow. Let's talk about this. Now, where did the overflow idea come from? This is something we've been talking about for some time, but where did this emerge?
For me, it came a few weeks ago. I think the word was that was given to me by God. And it was really a moment where it kind of all clicked as to what God longs for us in our everyday life with the way we interact with other people. The definition there is, from the Oxford Dictionary, is to be so full that the contents go over the sides, to overflow. From reading through the New Testament recently, I was discovering all these verses that suggested the idea of blessing others. Paul was talking about how he had been given grace to give to others, to preach to others. And he'd seen communities in action. We look at the book of Acts, where these communities are providing for one another's needs. And I think that is a great picture of the overflow and the overflow life that we want to see in our life today. Because I believe that the Christian life should be one that is exemplified by healthy relationships and overflowing joy. We want to present an attractive picture of God to others.
Now, somewhere along the way, though, we developed this mentality, though, that it seems as though gifts should only be given to people who deserve them. This overflow should be given to people who are, I guess, ready to get them. This overflow life, this abundance is just for certain people. How does that emerge? Where does this come from?
Yeah, this overflow life isn't something that I see on a wide scale. I mean, I know a number of people who I would consider living an overflowing life. But I think it's that idea that we aren't accepting the gifts of God. This may not be true for all of us, but I sense that many of us aren't living an overflowing life because we aren't 100% confident in the goodness of God, either subconsciously or consciously. For example, we read in Matthew chapter 7 that God longs to give us good gifts. he says, "Ask and you shall receive." But I feel like there's something in our past that is holding us back from fully accepting them. Have you ever been on the receiving end of a friend giving you some money because they feel like you need it or they just want to give you a gift?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that is a good example where we kind of try and argue our way out of receiving the gift because we don't like that feeling of indebtedness.
Yeah, this indebtedness feeling to someone, absolutely. But I think of also when I was a kid and mom and dad, hey, we were tight with money, not a lot. We're
Mm.
immigrants to this country, and they're like, okay, you need this. Okay, here's $20. Oh, I don't need 20. Maybe five. That's enough.
Mm-hmm,
You know.
mm-hmm.
Later on in life, I was like, oh yeah, I'll take the 20.
Yeah. But that idea there is exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. So there's this sense of just trying to be really, please, but people don't realize, hey, uh, you don't need to live indebted to God in that way. He has so much more he wants to pour in you, but then there needs to be something else that follows, which is this idea of the overflow goes in you and then goes into others.
Exactly. It's receiving that $20 from your parents because they want to give you $20, even though you might only need that five.
Yeah.
Okay, so last year, did you get Christmas presents? Were you on the naughty list or the nice list?
Okay, I mean, I hope I'm always on the very, very special and extraordinary list. That's a good one. Okay. I won't say.
You won't say. Okay. Thanks for the honesty there. But this idea of the Santa Claus mentality, we've let it bleed into our spiritual understanding. We have to be on the nice list to deserve anything. But that's not the way God operates. I think two things happen from this. Number one, we don't have a supply of God's goodness to pass on to others, and therefore we are limited in our capacity to overflow His goodness into the lives of those around us. And number two, which I think we've mentioned a couple times already, is that we only give gifts to those who we feel deserve them.
And I would add maybe number three, we also have this limited mindset of how many gifts are actually in Santa's bag, or we convert it to in God's a house of blessing. It's like, well, there's only this amount and not more than that. And then we take that into relationships with people. It's like, well, my friend didn't say I looked nice, so I'm not going to tell her she looks nice. Elena didn't comment about this. Elena, my wife, I'm not going to comment about that to her. This person's doing that project. Yeah, they're doing really great, but they didn't say anything to me. So it's like we're doing this ticky-tacky thing because we feel as though there's only so much praise we can give to the world in that bag, or blessing, or you can just add however much you want to it.
So we let that kind of, we play that emotional game, right?
Right.
And it's fundamentally, I think, our emotional processes there are broken. If we don't acknowledge the hurt and brokenness that exists within our own lives and in our own relationships, not only will we suffer, but our church and wider community will suffer too.
Absolutely. And I mean, in this podcast, let's just start it from the very beginning. We have a vision for the future where every church is full of emotionally healthy individuals who have this clear understanding of the gospel and the goodness of God.
Mm-hmm.
And He wants to restore brokenness, but it has to be acknowledged. And so now we then go to the next phase, and it's these people who have been filled with the goodness and gospel of God. Now they can't but help to let the love of God just overflow from their lives into the lives of those around them.
I really believe in that vision. I think that there is a church in the future that looks exactly like that. And that's what we want to work towards.
Yeah,
but hey, we should give a disclaimer. We're not licensed marriage family therapists. We're not counselors in that sense. As Philip mentioned before, he's on the pastoral team at Loma Linda University Church. And I myself am involved in the organizational and logistical side of ministry in a mission-based organization. But yeah, as we said, we're passionate about seeing people grow in a healthy way. both emotionally and spiritually. And so we want to see the church become the community God intended it to be. When we don't know the answers, which is probably going to be a lot of the time, we're going to be inviting some guests on the podcast to share their wisdom with us. So I'm really looking forward to having those conversations. But as we get into this, let's look ahead. In this first season, we're going to be looking at a few of the good gifts of God. We'll be releasing episodes every Monday, and we're going to be exploring the pages of Scripture to get a fresh perspective on God's gifts of love, grace, and forgiveness, and talk to some friends of ours who can help us apply it to our lives in the here and now. We're also going to be putting together a reflection guide for each episode to help you look back on the material in personal study or with a group of friends. And so you can access those at our website, choosetooverflow.com. But today, I want to look at just one verse in the Bible, John chapter 10, verse 10. It's probably familiar to most of you. It says, well, tell me if I'm right here. I'm just quoting from memory, Philip. I have come, this is Jesus talking, I have come that they may have a mediocre, average, mundane life. Is that what Jesus said?
Whoa, Carl. Jesus also said, if anyone changes my word, I will curse them. So don't be changing the word like that. It does not say that.
All right, let me reread it. John chapter 10:10, Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly.
You know, the way you changed it is actually really helpful because I think that's the reality of what we almost believe. We think God came to give us this mediocrity, this averageness, this mundaneness. Like when I become a believer, it's drudgery, there's hard work, it's just taxing. But the reality of what Jesus wants us to understand is he came to give abundance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Abundance. Jesus didn't die on the cross so that we could cope with life. He came for that abundance that you're talking about.
Wow.
But like you said, the way we live our lives is just expecting the average, mundane, mediocre life. But even though we believe that Jesus came to give us abundance, we're not actually living that out. Abundance means more than enough. You have an abundance. So when I think of that, I think of you having enough for others.
Now that you're thinking about abundance being as more than enough, I think about an illustration almost to kind of depict this. So this is an illustration that I saw done and I just found it so meaningful. It's called the pitcher, cup, saucer, plate. And when you think of a pitcher, you go to a wedding, you go to a person's home, you're at your house and you have a pitcher of something, juice, water, whatever it is. We'll call it water here. And that pitcher fills into a cup. And then a cup sitting on a saucer, and then on a plate. Now, if we transpire all these spiritually, God is that pitcher of living water pouring into the cup, which is an individuals, you, me. And then that cup overflows into the saucer as Christ is pouring himself into us. And that saucer represents all of our favorite people, the most important people in our life, family, friends, co-workers. And then that plate underneath the saucer are all the things in life, the tasks, the work, the world itself around us. So really how it works is God pours into you, you're pouring into others, and then collectively we all pour into the world, blessing the world through this overflow, going from Christ into us, into the world. It's a different way of thinking.
That's a powerful illustration. So tell me, what would happen if I prioritized my work, my things of this world above my relationships?
Yeah, so I mean, then you have the pitcher just falling on the plate, covering you and the most important people in your life. It doesn't work. And most of us actually find ourselves doing that. And then we end up being in toxic relationships because you don't have anything to give people. You're taking from them. And that doesn't work at all. Another way of thinking about it, you can also prioritize, now that you got me on this train, you can put other people above yourself. So now you're like, oh, it's just about everyone. I want to help everyone. I want to be there for everyone. but you're not being filled yourself.
Yeah.
That doesn't work either. There has to be a right order to this. You get full and you stay full. You stay under the place where the pitcher is being poured, the living water of Christ. Stay in those spaces, and then you can continue the flow. Like a stream, it
Yeah.
pulls in one, pulls in another, and goes down to the river.
Yeah, I love that. It's the prioritization. And if you don't get that right, the quality of life decreases.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me of the first part of John chapter 10:10 I didn't read before. It says, Jesus was again talking to the crowd around him, and he says, "The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life." So there's this idea that there's three motives of the thief, or the devil is who he's talking about. So he'll steal first. He'll take whatever he can from us. And then if he can't take anything, he'll opt to kill. He'll try and get us to kill it. Now, the word kill there is actually the same Hebrew or same Greek word for sacrifice. And I think of it like this way. Maybe the devil's trying to get you to sacrifice something, and maybe he's asking you to put it on the altar of religion. Maybe your relationships, he can't take them away from you, but he'll ask you to sacrifice your family so that you can go do quote unquote ministry. And then if he can't get you to do that, then he will resort to destruction. And here it's either destruction of life entirely, or we could think of it like this, where he's destroying the quality of life, kind of like the book of Job, the story of Job, where Job's life was preserved, but everything else was taken from him. And his wife was saying, "Hey, just curse God and die."
Karl, I think of so many times and places that most of us don't recognize that there is someone working against you and me in order to reorder the correct prioritization. And it comes in so many forms, and how Satan really does get us. I think the biggest one right now that's happening is distraction with media. We are just inundated with it, and we don't know how to even function in a way in which is healthy with technology. And so I think this is a huge way that a lot of people are being destroyed. It could be gaming, pornography, just complete addiction to being saturated with media, period. The image of yourself on social media. It's like Satan wants to take you out any way he can. And if he can, he'll do it. I'm working with a wife right now who's just struggling with her husband because he's addicted to pornography. It's ruining their marriage. I've known other spouses, they got divorced as a result of that. It just wouldn't leave. And so you see, Jesus didn't come to give us things that would distract us from the essence of the great quality of life. But it didn't mean we're not going to have struggles and trials and difficulties.
And those struggles in today's world, we kind of separate them from our spiritual life. We call them emotional problems sometimes. I heard Dr. Henry Cloud, a clinical psychologist, recently make the comment that we don't actually have emotional problems that are separate from spiritual problems. They're one and the same. A emotional problem is rooted in a spiritual problem. And I thought that was really profound, actually.
That really is. That's really good. Does he go deeper into that, or?
He listed 4 key issues.
Okay.
Let me run through them real quick. Number 1 would be people who are emotionally isolated and disconnected. So these are those who are disconnected from God and other people. Number 2, you've got the people who have lack of boundaries and self-control. They don't feel like they have control in their lives. Maybe they're feeling manipulated by other people, or they have challenges with diet, etc. Then we have people who are carrying wounds of unprocessed pain. And so some of us are super critical and judgmental of ourselves or others. And this is related to how we process pain in our lives and whether or not we have the ability to forgive ourselves and others. And then the number 4 is the lack of mental independence. So those of us who are dealing with depression or anxiety, maybe we have an inferiority complex, or we're ultra competitive. Ultimately, we haven't necessarily grown up to being full adults, spiritual adults, where we're stuck in a child's frame of mind. But the gospel is calling us to be fully adults and be equals with everyone. So I thought those 4 things were really powerful. I'm looking forward to getting into those a little bit more in the future episodes, and how they relate to the way we overflow.
Wow. Wow, Carl, that was really helpful. I think that once we as a human being can comprehend that being spiritual, being spiritually connected to God is for your best interest, you begin to unlock so much in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything improves in the right order. You either see God as the source of your abundance and blessing, or you see God and your relationship with Him as just a trial, a difficulty. What good is going to come out of it? And that, I think, comes out of this person who's spiritually looking at God in a works-based format, where you think, well, did I spend time with Him? I got to check it off my list. As opposed to the person saying, and I got to go to God. I got to get to that picture, because that picture is crucial for me to be able to flow into everything else I'm doing in life. That's the difference.
Yeah. And I think some of us aren't allowing ourselves to see where we are broken in life. But if we get to that point where we're like, okay, God, show me the areas where I need to improve, show me the brokenness, that's where I think it's going to start to, our quality of life is going to start improving. And so the overflow premise is that if we allow God to reveal that spot of brokenness deep within ourselves and allow Him to heal us from that spot, as He is longing to do, our lives are going to become like an unfailing spring of water, overflowing life into our community, into those around us, those close relationships, but also just those we come in contact with at work or at the supermarket, and will be a blessing to others.
Well, Carl, I want to leave all of our listeners with a blessing, as we're going to do every episode. And so may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make His face to shine upon you, and may He be gracious unto you. May you be filled and continually overflowing His love into the relationships that you experience this week, this day, this next hour. Blessings to you in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
So today, may you choose to overflow.
Hey, thanks so much for listening in on our conversation today. If something we said made you think, or maybe you just want to say hello or give some feedback, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at hello@choosetooverflow.com. You can also find us on Instagram @choosetooverflow, or check out our website, choosetooverflow.com, where you can find more content, including a reflection guide for today's episode to help you take the conversation further. That's choosetooverflow.com. And finally, if this was helpful to you, make sure to subscribe to stay connected. We'll be releasing episodes every Monday going forward, and we'd also really appreciate you leaving us a review and telling a friend or 3. Thanks again for listening. We hope you choose to overflow this week. Let's chat again soon.